Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode of Courageous Conversations. I'm so excited for our guest today, the one, the only Dr. Uju Ona, and she is cool. For no other words, she is cool, she is amazing, and she is revolutionary. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Dr. Uju. And Uju, can you introduce yourselves to our audience? Who are you?
Thank you very much for having me, Larabelle. I'm pleased to be here. My name is Uju, Dr. Uju Ona now. The full name is Uju Ona. But Uju for short.
Okay.
I'm from Obolafo in Onsukka Geographical Zone in Enugu State, Nigeria. That's the Igbo land of Nigeria, the southeastern part. And I'm here now in Canada. I'm a Canadian, and yeah, I'm an archaeologist, Indigenous archaeologist. So yeah.
Okay, so before we get into all that is being a Black woman in archaeology and in academia, I'm going to start by letting our audience know, because they might not know, you are the first Black female to graduate from Memorial University with a doctorate in archaeology.
Yeah.
How does that feel to have that title? So, congratulations. That's
Thank
a really big deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It feels good. It feels fulfilling. It feels it's like I represented a lot of people. I represented not just me. I told the story not just for me, for people that came before me, people that are coming after me, because I'm not going to be the last. And then to the whole world, I told the story of the whole world, every Black person in any space, and especially in a field like that. And yeah, it feels amazing and it feels fulfilling, and I'm incredibly grateful. That's how I feel. I feel like, yeah, I'm grateful for being me.
Okay, I am so grateful for you being you as well. Okay, so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty and the real story behind this. So you have this honor, but when you started this was not what you were going for. You weren't thinking about being the first. You were just a person who was interested in archaeology. Now, as a Nigerian as well, I'm going to look at you. So when you told your parents, I'm studying archaeology, my immediate thought, if I went to mom and dad back in the day and said, I'm studying archaeology, they'd be like, why are you digging in the dirt? We did not have you for you to go and dig in the dirt. So, how did you develop this interest and how did you introduce it to your family?
Well, first, I'm going to start with what you said first. When I came here, I didn't know I'm going to be the first. I was just someone that I came for my PhD, and it was passionate to me, and I just have to get that PhD. So I wasn't thinking of, oh, I'm going to break the record, or I'm going to do that. But in the long run, I found that I was the first to be in this journey so far. So then I had someone tell me that, do you know you are the first? And I was like, first for what? And she was like, the first, we had Black people do masters and people come in, but you are the first. If you finish, like she put the word, if you finish,
If,
you'll be the, yeah. So, and I was like, okay, I'm not just going to finish, I'm going to dust it.
as you
So it
did.
feels so good and it felt challenging. So when I found out, when I've already started the program, maybe almost I've done my first year, when I found out that I was in that race. So it felt
Mhm.
good. It felt challenging because I know that I was not just here on my own. I had support. I had great inspiration. It was my cheese design that I'm here. So I wasn't afraid for one day. I know that, okay, if that be the case, then I am. So from my family background, well, I came from a family where almost everyone is in the medical field. That typical Igbo family that everybody has to be a medical doctor, and then you have to, like, everybody. If you're in the medical field, you're successful. That kind of feeling. So I
Yep.
came from that kind of family. I grew up in Onsuka in a university environment. My parents were staff. So, and initially, I was very outspoken as a kid. I had very diverse opinion to what my siblings talked about. So my siblings told me, like, whatever she says, just ignore her. That kind of thing. So then, but growing up, my mom especially was seeing me more like she can talk, she can stand her ground. Then she's gonna study law. You know,
Hey.
it was already designed for you. When you're
Yeah.
growing up, you already know, like, oh, she behaves like her, then she's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lawyer. So then I was like, okay, whatever they say, I'm going to do it. So when I got into as a little girl, I
Mm-hmm.
would go for this children's center library in the University of Nigeria. So
Mm-hmm.
I went there one day. I can still remember vividly. I went with my brother, and then during when you finish reading, then we
Mm-hmm.
summarize our novels. So I remember raising my hand and asking a question. I said, these novels, none of them has a name that I'm familiar with. I don't know these people. It's always Cathy and Mark telling me names that I'm not familiar with. They say they live around Lagoon. They call it name of places that I can't familiarize myself. I remember asking the lady that was, I think she was a white lady. She said, okay, okay, yeah. So I said, okay, fine. But I really needed her to explain to me why I don't find myself in the storybooks, why I feel like I'm left out. The story is not about me. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
people that I don't know. But that was it. That was where my first curiosity of identity started, if I can trace back. So then I went home, I keep asking questions, but nobody took me serious. When I got into high school, I was very little. I entered high school at 10. So
Okay.
yeah, and then during the interview session, one of them said she cannot be admitted. She's too small. She's not gonna sustain a boarding school and all that. So, but one of the ladies took interest in me, and she said I should climb on top of the table, and I did. So, and then she was like, "You're small, but you're brave, and you have a voice." I loved that lady for that. She said we should give her the opportunity because she has the voice. That there are a lot of people that are older than me, bigger than me, but they don't have the voice. So they should. So I was so happy that at least somebody was on my side for the first time, allowing me to talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I came in and became a student, I wasn't allowed to talk freely. I had to follow the rules. That was the first time I started feeling the challenges of telling my story. First, I don't have to like express myself anymore. It was kind of an English school. You speak
Mm-hmm.
English, even in the hostel, refectory, classroom, on the road, playing, speak English. So, but I am this person that when I want to tell my story, I want to say it, express it, use the words that tells it out of my heart. But I was limited to that. So that was the
Okay.
first time I started feeling that I might not be able to tell the story how I am. How will I tell people like my identity I keep feeling that there is a barrier to my identity and all that. That was how my journey started. So when I
Okay.
now finally got into the university, and my dad is this kind of person that said, whatever she wants to study, let her study. She's going to find herself someday. She has a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into the university, studying archaeology. At first, my mom was like, when you finish that thing you're doing, you go to law school.
When you're done wasting your time, go find.
So at some point, I was still thinking that, oh, I'm still going to go to law school. Most of my classmates were like, you don't even think that this is enough. I said, I know it's enough, but I know someone is waiting for, I'm going to go to that law school. So when I finished, I actually went to law school. So I have a law degree.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay. All
so, but
right.
in my final year of archaeology, my parents started liking it, right? Because I was now involved in my community. In a project where you have to do your project yourself. My project was about my community. I have to go travel to the village. I have to meet some elderly people, and lots of them don't know me. When you don't live in the village and all that. So I started introducing myself. I started getting them involved, taking pictures with them, and then my parents liked it. And you were like, "Is this the archaeology you're doing?" I said, "Yes." So they said, "Oh, these people are involved. What they understood archaeology is not this." I said, "Okay, this is archaeology." And then my project supervisor was like very impressed. My department was very impressed. So after that was a turning point in my life to realize that I really wanted to do a community-based archaeology, a collaborative archaeology. It's not just archaeology of you telling people how to tell their story. Allow people to tell their story. So that was it. And I didn't drop archaeology again. I didn't think twice I didn't doubt myself again. I graduated best in my undergraduate. So when I went for my new youth service somewhere in Bielsa, I continued archaeology. I did collaborative stuff in Yenegoa. That was actually what formed my master's thesis. So the journey became like people around you were like, tell us what you're doing now. It became cool, right? Yeah. So, but I still struggled with funding. Nigeria, you don't have to like get funding for a lot of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
most of them are still being funded by my parents, which they didn't like. So, so, but it paid because after my master's, I graduated best again. So, and then I was retained to start teaching in the University of Nigeria. So I became a
Okay.
lecturer. And then I was now mentoring people, still doing community-based archaeology, going for shows, going for Indigenous stuff like that. Then I came to Canada to do
Okay.
PhD. So I linked with other international scholars, and then my supervisor. Then I came to Canada. So that's kind of a summary of my journey.
Okay. So this started for you very young in more you being able to tell your story your way and then wanting to help other people tell their stories their way. So I'm going to ask a question for you to kind of explain what archaeology is for people who are still stuck with the idea of digging in the dirt and finding historical artifacts. What is the idea behind archaeology?
Archaeology is cool. Like to me, I see archaeology as the most fascinating thing. When you discovered something no one has ever, and you feel so good, like you feel like you hold that power in your head. So I felt that when I was 10 years old, and I didn't know that that was like what my destiny or my journey is going to be. My grandfather he was the first educated person in my community. He was very educated. He was trained by colonial masters. So he wrote his own autobiography before he passed. So when my mom left, I was still like a baby when he passed. So I didn't meet him like
Hmm.
cognitively. So but when I was 10, I just found one of his autobiography copy in my mother's archive. And none of my siblings ever found that. So, and they
Okay.
are the ones that like they read the note stuff. But I found it. And any small discussion, I'll tell my mom, your father said this.
Okay.
According to your father. So then my mom was like, where do you get all this from? I was like, I found your father's autobiography. And that was the turning point, like the discovery point for me to tell
Okay.
that story, to have like the identity. And my grandfather wrote a lot about his lost identity, how he like not pick up, go back to his roots after education and all that. So that's the same thing that I feel that most archaeologists feel when they go to the field and find something fascinating. Something that you think that you can tell the story and then everybody's going to listen to you, you can draw audience. However, archaeology of the present days is an inclusive project. It's not just what one person tells the story or you have the only power. A lot of people have the power to tell the story, especially people that created those objects or have interpretation to what you have. So
Hmm.
now you are involving not just the creators of those objects, but you're involving all the history associated to what you discovered. You might not actually call it discovery because it's already in existence before you came, right?
Hmm.
But probably that's what you're working on. So as you're
Okay.
working on it, you are going to include the voices of the people that owns the object, the land that the object was created, the agency of the people that has different stories, a different history associated with the objects. So to
Okay.
me, that's what makes archaeology so fascinating. So everyone can be a part of an archaeological project, including you.
Okay, I'm volunteering as tribute to be part of your next project. So, for you, you spent your early childhood finding your voice and figuring out how to tell your story within the confines that had been created for you. Then you find yourself in Canada in a whole new system in a whole new world if we're going to talk honestly. So what was it like for you, so coming from a predominantly black space where different aspects of your identities were seen as a barrier for you during your education system back there? You moved to Canada where your identity is being defined by a whole new scope. How did you find yourself within academia in Canada?
Well, I would say I landed at the right place. I didn't know
Okay.
this till I landed, or maybe towards few months, I found myself in a very welcoming environment. Most of the stories people told me before I came, I didn't experience it.
Okay.
Modern archaeology department is just, I keep saying that they are my family in Canada. The welcome,
Okay.
I'm becoming emotional. They
Oh.
welcomed me with an open heart. A lot of people treated me like they knew me before. Starting from my supervisor, she was more than just a supervisor. She's kind of my mother and my mentor and my friend. And people around me, other students that maybe other PhD students that had their masters there, or maybe they're already familiar with the environment, they treated me like their own. Most of them volunteered to, like, because cold was the most important problem I had. So when I
The
came,
weather.
the weather. So
Newfoundland
I
is special for that.
I am never going to leave my door like it's. But most of them volunteered to pick me from my house, encourage me, take me to school, take me to shop for warm weather, meet. At some point I feel like, have you known me before? Like, why are you being this nice? So all the things people told me, oh, you have to be careful of people. I don't need that, because they welcomed me with an open heart. That academic environment was just more than an academic environment. It was a home for me. Most of my professors are my friends today because of how they treated me and how I was welcomed and how they treated other students. And I know I'm not different.
Yeah.
Like, that's how that space is, and is a welcoming place. So when I started teaching undergrads and on, I found other Nigerian students doing archaeology, and I was like, this is so cool. I wanted to, like, advertise it, but I don't need
Yeah.
to, I don't need to. You guys are already here. And then most of them are picking it as like they're shooting at a choice. I was like, if you want to make this a major, I will really say, yeah, make your major. This is a very welcoming space, and they're going to allow you to tell your story how you want it to do. So being in academia in Canada, I didn't really have a lot of itch to say, like, this is not for me. It's for me. That space was for me, and I took it up.
Okay. So, over the time of you going through your PhD, you expanded and you built yourself a really diverse and intersectional community within the archaeology program. Are there some key points for you when you look back and you're like, these are the people who are helping me make it to where I want to be at the end of the day?
Yeah. One thing with PhD is that you don't actually get the whole clear picture at once. As you go, it's flexible. Things change. You add, you remove. You find this is not necessary. This is not reliable, and all that. So I was in that space too, to, like, doubt myself, think whether you're making sense or you're not making sense. But there are people that are there that have actually gone through that journey before you. So I focused on listening to people that have gone through that path before me, the pace setters in my field, especially in the Black community and in archaeology community in general. So I had to engage myself with listening to people, like, that are resounding names in archaeology. Well, my supervisor is one of them, so I'm so privileged to be her baby. So, and
You
then
can drop her name so we can give her credit too.
it's a ranking, and where I think it's my chi that did that. So she everything she told me is real, and I didn't doubt it. I was like, okay, this lady has gone through this part over the years, and she succeeded, and she has made her very big name in herself and all that. So this is just the part I'm going to take. I also listen to a lot of people, the Black people that lend voices of how you don't have to be how you have to be resilient, how to keep pushing, how you're not different from anybody, how you just have to be you. Somebody like Dr. Dolores, she was there for me, and other Black women in academia that I was following online, and other people, Indigenous people also in Canada. Because one thing about being Indigenous is that we are alike all over the world. Wherever you go, you're going to find people that have something to do with their identity that you have to follow. So I follow lots of them on social media, and I just listen to them talk, and it resonates with my story. And I'll be like, okay, if these people made it well, I think I'll be fine. So, yeah.
So you found your sense of courage from following others who came before you,
Yeah.
which I guess ties really well to the study of archaeology, of the stories of those who were there before, and uncovering, not discovering, but uncovering their stories. Okay. So now you've done the thing. You've finished the PhD. You've gotten the title. What does it look like for you?
Every day I wake up and I'll be like, so is God.
Okay.
There's this heavy shoulder that is on your like on your neck every day. You feel like, when am I going to finish? When is this going to be perfect? But it feels so good to finish. I really say that. Not just that you are not like timing yourself, you're not on deadline every minute, you're on your computer. Even on when you want to take a break, you're not really taking a break, right? So I think at some point, my dad is always the person that keeps telling me, you don't finish until you finish. Sometimes I'll be like, I think when I finish this, I'm going to rest. And he said, no, you don't finish until you finish. So, and that's actually, it's now that I really know what he meant by, because now I relax. Now I reply email when I want to. I check you don't have to check your email like 9 o'clock. You're already checking your email. You don't have to like, oh, I need to do this paragraph in 3 hours, and all that. So it feels good to like get that one done. However, academia is a continuous journey. So you might get that one done, but you are not really done.
The
So
journey is always going.
the journey is always going. So I'm stick to my computer. I'm still working. I'm still trying to write. I'm still trying to get other jobs done. So it's an ongoing process, and I love it.
Okay, so we're going to go back a little bit to where you say you also have a degree in law. I love how you just dropped that and like, let's continue on with the story. When you did your degree in law, what was that like for you, still knowing that your passion was archaeology?
Well, I think I entered it just to satisfy my mom, right? And maybe to like feel like I'm doing something big in the family. Like having your younger ones, medical doctors, and then every family thing they'll kind of give their opinion. And then my mom would like, you should listen to that. You should listen to your sisters.
I
So
know that
that
feeling.
was how I felt when I got in. But when I got in, I realized that I actually didn't just do this to satisfy my mom. I think I needed it
Okay.
because the part of customary laws and indigeneity and indigenous laws that govern the land and all that was something that was so relating to heritage and archaeology and indigenous archaeology particularly because most times all these things are embedded in the laws of the land, and then the applicability, how the preservation of culture is something that has to do with fundamental human right, has something that you have to refer to some different articles from the United Nations, from UNESCO, from ICROM, and all that. So I found out that this is cool. I can really relate this to archaeology. I didn't know about that when I started, but during my third to final year, I was already reading cases that I know that like this can be using I can use archaeological evidence to prove this.
Hmm.
This can surface as archaeology objects or something archaeological work can be an evidence to this case and it's gonna work. So when I found that intersection, I felt so good. But when I finished, I really needed to really focus on archaeology more. I wanted to get to the community. I wanted to get involved, with elderly people, do things my way. So I might still get back to law, but not now.
No.
I really love doing archaeology and getting into the community. I think it's what I want to do for now.
I think I really love how, in you studying archaeology, it wasn't just archaeology as a theoretical concept, but the indigeneity aspect of it. So I am Nigerian too, I'm Igbo too, and something that I've realized as someone growing up in North America, I don't get to know my people's history except I ask my mom and dad. So, except I go and do the digging on my own, it's not something that is evident and present in the day to day of my life as someone who exists predominantly in white spaces in a North American context. And it's something that came up in conversation with a couple friends recently about like, who are you? So I can proudly say I'm Nigerian. I can proudly say I'm Igbo. I can proudly say my family's from Onitsha and Anambra, and I can trace all those things and tie myself that way. And then if I dig far enough, I know that my grandfather on my mom's side is Ediele Afibo. So he wrote about Igbo history and all of that. But then when I talk about it, it seems like this grand, far off idea because it's not something that's a lot of people have publicly available information about or have taken an interest to know. So it's like, I feel like sometimes I'm balancing two worlds in terms of I know I'm indigenous to somewhere, but the space that I am in, I am a settler in. And then how do I balance my indigeneity to a different land that has been colonized and is sometimes still struggling to gain its own footing in society? So then when I see people like you who are doing the work of helping community tell their stories in such an accessible manner, so it's not that I have to call family, because family won't always be there in that respect. But if I want to see my story or the story of my people told in an academic context, but with our voices, there are people like you who are doing that work. So that I have a son who's biracial, so that when he wants to know the story of his people, thanks to work of people like you, he can be like, these are my people, these are our stories. And it's not something that he had to covertly source or story told by other voices dictating what our identities are. So I really love that you're empowering communities to tell their own story in their own way, not within the barriers of colonialism.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm really fascinating to hear that Afiwa Adele is your ancestor. Like, he's my very big idol.
He
His
is.
works, I read them, I can tell them off heart. I loved his work. He's a very big icon in Igbo history. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I get a lot of comments like that from people like you. I recently met a colleague at U of T. She's Igbo, but she was born and grew up in America. And then when I talk about the Igbo culture and how it intersects with migration and indigeneity in the recent seminar they had, and I was there, and she was like, I wish my father spoke how you spoke about this. I would have picked it out. I said, you know, your father might be good in something, in a part of it that I'm not good at. Everybody has something that is you're good at. You have to find the one that you're good at and then pick it up from there. So, like I said, some of my siblings, when I tell the history of my people, they were like, "Where do you get all this from? How do you know this?" But I ask questions. When we get to the village during Christmas and all that, they might be playing chairs and all that. But I'm gonna go inside the community looking for my elderly auntie that is like 90 years, and then I want to stay with her. When they talk, I pick what they say. I necessarily might not go there to pick what they say, but like I don't forget their conversations because maybe the next time I will come for Christmas, she might have passed. And
Mm-hmm.
then the only thing I hold is what she told me.
Mm-hmm.
So indirectly, I just pick all those things, not necessarily because I want to put in archaeology or that, but because I just feel that it's cool. So
No.
I don't know what that means. So your son might just be the next person to pick up that space that you think that nobody will know, or he might just be interested to take after your grandfather Fibwadile, and that would be so amazing.
Plant little archaeology seeds now in Theo. Will be like, have you looked into it? Have you found this part of Nigerian culture? But for you as someone now who's existing in not so much two worlds, but if we're going to be honest, you do exist in two worlds. You exist holding the stories and history of our people and a community that is commercialized in a very different way than we hold it dear to ourselves.
Hmm.
How do you find when you're telling or helping people bring voice to their own stories and their own identities when it conflicts with the story that's been told of them in those spaces? What is it like for you?
First, I would say Canada was the best place for me because the story of Indigenous people in Canada is something that is very close to what we have in Nigeria, the Biafra. You know that story, right?
I do.
So, and then when I tell my story here, they'll be like, "Oh, you guys have that too? You went through this?" And then the last time I did research in the Western Canada, and I was before we met the elders, it
Hmm.
was it was kind of an international research. So I was kind of one of the delegates. We have to come with the tobacco before we meet them. Perform the rituals. That was exactly what my grandfather does. I can still
Okay.
remember how my grandmother, before she said how she opens the tobacco and then how she invites it, and how that is I saw that play out in Edmonton. I was like, we are different continent. How are we so related in everything? And this is something to tell you that Indigenous people are the same globally. Wherever you see them, they have that tying them to their culture, their spirituality, their objects, their own thing. So my telling my story here in Canada is not that difficult because a lot of people already know the story of Indigenous people. So once I just say I'm Igbo and Indigenous people, they already know what they want. Like they're already expecting the outcome. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have to like stress to tell them what it means to be Indigenous and then what it means to have a local community that was colonized and still suffering under the colonial imprints and all that. So Canada is a very good example for people to just resonate with my story immediately.
And so I know about the Biafran story, but my audience doesn't. So since this podcast is new, do you mind sharing that little tidbit about what the Biafra story is like?
Biafra story, it was a republic. Biafra was the Igbo
Yeah.
land. It was a republic of Biafra prior to 1960 and all that. So, and then they were asking for independence. They wanted to be their own. They wanted to have their own space, just like every other indigenous community that want to own their land and control what happens in their land. But at that time, there were conflicts with the Nigerian government, acknowledging that Biafra has to be a standalone, independent country. So the struggles led to like they have a Biafran war that lasted I think 1966 to 1967. Yeah, I think. My father was a child soldier. He was a Biafran soldier. So he told us all the stories of how they fought, what kids were recruited into the soldier, how it was kind of a big, people died, lots of people lost their lives, a lot of sicknesses, nutrition and malnutrition and all that. And my mom kept telling us the story. She was just a little girl for like 4 to 5 years. That they were just moving from different communities. Their mother went to just hear a gunshot. They move. You know how war is and how bad it was. And then after that, Biafra was defeated, and then they were absorbed into Nigeria. That's how we became Nigeria today. Not that we voluntarily became Nigerians.
No, it wasn't a vote in. We didn't
Yeah,
give up that way.
it was a fight and lots of life. We lost lots of properties. Before that, you can see when you go to museums in Nigeria or anywhere in the world, you might see things that are still produced that has the Republic of Biafra on it. You see some currencies that already have Republic of Biafra, some books, there were things like they had. Do you know the University of Nigeria was University of Biafra before, and it produced the gunpowder on its own. They were producing gun ammunition. So imagine such power and all that. So, but they were absorbed, and then but now they're still seeking for that self rule, for that independence, for that ownership of their land, their space, at least ownership of their resources.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's a discussion that is still going on. So hopefully one day we'll have control over the resources of our land.
It's a common Indigenous struggle that exists between a multitude of Indigenous communities the world over. We're seeing similar things happen with the Maori people in New Zealand. We're seeing land back, which is a typical comment for Indigenous people here in North America, Canada more specifically. So, this idea and this need for sovereignty against colonial oppression is not something that's new. And it's not something that is this new age thing that being brought up when people ask why are they asking for land back and why are they asking for sovereignty. It was something that they had previously that was taken away due to colonial oppression, and
Yeah,
this idea to buy in to make it easier for our colonial oppressors to control resources, access, and power.
yeah,
So it's really cool to see, I guess, the descendants of those people like you who are out there being like, the story didn't die with them, and that for as long as we walk this earth, there'll be people working to tell those stories in not just colonizers' voices, but in our own voices, and to give spirit to those lives again.
yeah, yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Said it
You
better.
No, you do. I remember when I was scrolling on LinkedIn and I saw that you had graduated. So I'd been doing the LinkedIn creeping of you for a while. So I'm not even going to pretend that it was like a sudden thing. I've been doing the creeping and I was like, I want to see where she goes and I want to see what she does. And then when I found out that you were the first I did like, wait, what do you mean? We have been here a while. What do you mean the first? But then I was like, okay, so she's the first. which means it's been done, which means for everyone watching her, they know it is possible. So for a lot of the things that we're seeing, the first this, the first that, first my brain is like, these things have existed. How are we the first to be in this position? But then there always needs to be a first to show it is possible. We watch you do this. We watch Dr. Bolu Oygunyemi become the
Yeah.
first Black president of the Canadian Medical Association in 156 years. I was like, we have
Yeah.
been doctors for a
Yeah.
hot minute. What do you mean the first?
I saw that. I was like, this is huge.
Exactly. But then it also makes me very proud to exist in this time because the idea of Black people in predominantly white spaces used to be the idea of slavery or the idea of enslavement and oppression. But then when I see us thrive, not just live, but we're thriving in beyond the adversity and barriers placed upon us, I begin to think if this is what we can do with all these things stacked against us, what does it look like when we exist without these barriers? What is possible for us when we don't have this weight on our necks and on our shoulders? What does freedom look like to excel on our own terms?
Yeah.
And I'm so excited about what the future looks like for us with knowing that our descendants get to have us and be like, they did this with this struggle
Yeah.
and they broke these barriers down for us. Look at the things we can now achieve that are beyond our wildest dreams. And then what do our ancestors think about them? So I think it's really cool the way the world is looking for
Yeah.
us in
Yeah.
the future. So I have two more questions for you before I let you go. And they're pretty deep questions that could lead to a little bit of a couple extra questions. So for actually we're gonna make it three. If you were to talk to younger Uju, who is out right now playing, trying to figure out who she is and what her dreams can be, what would you tell her first?
First, I would say, don't doubt yourself. No matter how many voices that says no to your opinion, just your yes matters. And another thing I would say is just to be true to yourself. I was true to myself. That's why I made it. A lot of people dropped out. I know a lot of people that maybe they're very distinct in their career path, or maybe they're just the only one standing, maybe in an environment where you have to distinguish yourself. But maybe they found themselves like, maybe I'm not going to make this. They drop early. But if you're true to yourself, you'll make it no matter how far, no matter how long. You're going to do it one day. So I had a lot of doubt as a kid because your elder ones are not seeing what you're seeing. Your friends are not seeing what you're seeing. Your community is not seeing, is as if like, are you okay?
Are you dreaming alone?
Yeah. Maybe you're saying, are you doing too much? I
Mm-hmm.
remember one of my friends told me then, I think you're doing too much. And I went home and I thought about it. I was like, maybe I think I'm doing too much, really. So with that continuous doubts that you have, you keep doubting yourself. But one day you're gonna meet someone that said, you're not doing enough. So I had a friend that one of the days I was doubting myself, girl, you're not doing enough. What I see in you is beyond here you are. You're wasting time. And that was just all I needed. At that point I was like, okay, if someone is actually seeing more than what I'm seeing, I am not mistaken. So any younger person that is in kind of that shoe now, or maybe trying to find your space, don't just think about the final destination. Just follow the compass. Just move. Just follow the destination. It's gonna define itself someday. Just know that you're on the right path. Just do the right thing. Be on the right path. Don't be on the wrong. When you're on the wrong, you know. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're on the right path, you know. So when you're just moving on the right path, your destination is going to define itself. And when you get there, it's going to be amazing. Lots of my classmates that doubted me or maybe felt like did too much, or maybe feel like, do I have to like write extra paper, right? I was that girl that in my undergraduate was the share as a script, and then like few hours I'll be like, I need extra. Everyone will like, What?
Not gonna lie, I looked at those people. I'm like, what are you writing? Where are these answers coming from?
Girls that like they just hated me for that. But the fact is that I had more explanation.
You had things to tell.
And I was interested in my A. And I have a range number which is different from you, so I don't care what you write in your own. So it was at that time that after each encounter with those kind of people, I go to my room and then sit quietly and say, am I really doing too much? Maybe I don't have to write extra paper. No.
Write
You
your
have to
paper.
write extra paper.
Write your paper.
Yeah. You have to write that extra paper. You have to get that A. You have to be that person that said that trailblazer. So yeah, they have to really be true to themselves and don't doubt yourself. So far, you're on the right path. And also, I'm very spiritual. Pray to your chi. Whatever your chi has designed for you, you'll get there. Yeah.
All right, our second question. All right, you ready? And for those who are part of helping Indigenous people the world over, not just in Canada, not just in Nigeria, but the global Indigenous movement, finding their sovereignty in whatever way seems right to them, what do you want to tell them as an archaeologist who supports that kind of work?
Well, I'm glad you started with this a global thing because the other day I saw videos of people performing haka in a courtroom, and I was like, yeah, they're getting there.
Yes.
This is
Gave me
this is it.
goosebumps. It
Yeah,
was it was a
yeah. I
moment.
watched that video like 20 times, and I would tell every indigenous person to like own it. This is who you are. You're not gonna change it, even if you don't live in that environment. Try to connect to your identity, wherever you live, how you talk. Your language is you. This is your definition of your being. So I'm gonna say, yeah, they're doing a lot of work that is trying to reconnect people back to their land, to their space, give the voice to the voiceless, try to give food to people that food was taken away from. Try to make people have power over their heritage and resources. Try to make people preserve their ancestral space and also acknowledge that people lived there before them. So it's a work that is so dear to my heart, and I'm really in support of anybody that supports Indigenous history because everybody has where you come from. You have a roots. Your indigeneity matter. So, and for people that feel like they have disconnected for a long time, they cannot trace it. You can always trace it. Now, AI is helping people trace their ancestry. You can trace your ancestry, you can trace your roots, you can trace to your language, you can even relate to your family members that are not living with you. There are works that are being done in the States. One of my colleagues in Oklahoma is doing a work about a space that has slave encampment in the 17th century. And then she's still finding things that are relating to the Yoruba culture. And it's so fascinating. She was like, maybe I'm Yoruba. I said, yes, you are. Yes, you might be. You just have to work on it. So most of these people want to trace themselves, but maybe they don't feel like it's necessary or not that it's necessary if you're interested in it. And I'm really going to urge you to like do it, not just for you, but for your ancestors. They're going to be happy to have you back. And also for your lineage, people after you are going to know where they come from and then say, oh, I'm from this and for that. So it gives this kind of fulfillment to know that you're not just from the sky. You're not flying. You have a root. You have where you're going to go and say, this is my space and I belong here. So yeah.
No, you saying that reminds me of this picture that my parents had in our house growing up. And it said, teach your children so they have roots, but let them dream so they can fly. And it's this, like, I can remember where it sat in our home, in our hallway just before we went out the door. And so for the final question, before I thank you for the time you spent with me, the title of our podcast is called Courageous Conversations. And so, what inspires you to live so authentically and courageously in your life?
It's being indigenous and seeing that I'm not alone. There are wonderful indigenous people out there from different cultures, from different backgrounds. When I see them and I realize that these people are just true to themselves and they're living kind of a similar life that I want to live, it gives me the inspiration to like, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. And then when I get compliment from for people like younger our generation, our generation, they feel like, oh, we are woke, we don't have to do those local things. But sometimes some of them just send me messages like, I should have listened to you when you told me let's go for that festival. That kind of stuff.
Yes.
I should have listened to you when you said, let me just make my hair with local beads. I should have listened to you when you said, let's just make that native wear and wear for that party. You're really doing well.
Digging out, like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
absolutely.
So when I get those kind of message, I was like, okay, I think I'm on the right path. I think I'm doing something that is inspiring, not just my generation, but the generation coming. Because this generation coming, I don't know.
They got
So
spice. They
yeah,
have
they
spice,
have
I will
vibes and
tell you.
everything. Yeah. So, but I like that the fact the other day I was speaking my language on the train, and then somebody came to me and said, "Oh, you are Igbo." I said, "Yes." I said, "I heard you on the phone." I said, and then we connected. And she's just a very young girl in her early 20s, and she speaks the language very well. And that is sometimes I don't find it often, like some people in that early 20s speaking their language and all that. So, and I was so happy to meet her. And when we got off the train, I just waved and told her, I hope to see you next time. And then she said, oh, she hopes to see me too. So it's really something that inspires me when I see younger people that want to really connect back to the root, that are true to their identity, despite wherever you are. You're speaking your language, you're dressing up, people know who you are. Or even if you don't want to dress up, or even when someone asks you, where are you from? Be proud to say where you're from. Some people don't even, some people are not proud to say where they're from. They keep running around, they don't answer a direct question. So that inspires me a lot because I feel I achieved something my grandfather didn't. He didn't go back to his roots. So, and me going back to my roots, my grandfather is so proud of me. Yeah, I know he is, wherever he is. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Uju, thank you. For one, everything you have shared with us during this podcast has been so insightful, so eloquent, but also so authentically you in everything that Uju represents. Oh, sorry, Dr. Uju Ona represents. This has been a very enlightening conversation for me as someone who's also Nigerian, who's also Igbo, but who also at one point hid her Nigerian aspect to try and fit into a culture that she so wanted to belong to, but is now, when people see me and they see, if it's nothing else but the attire, who's working really hard to reclaim her language and all of that. So thank you for this work that you are doing, that you have done, and for setting the bar as that this is attainable for us when before it seemed like a dream. So thank you for living so courageously and authentically and for having this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, sister. If I can.
Absolutely. You can call me sister. You can call me friend. I am
Thank you. Thank you
100%
so
honored to.
much. And you're really doing an amazing job having this studio and this session. And you're really inspiring me too. It's not every young person that will really can do this thing you're doing. You don't know you, but you're also contributing to that indigenous history and the black story, the
Thank
history.
you.
Posterity will remember this. Those documents will be in archives in so many years to come. People are going to refer to this work. People are going to fight you. So this is what matters. And then your contribution is what matters. It's who you are. And you're doing a lot. And I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for hyping me. But honestly, I can't wait.
Oh, I'm not flattering. I'm just saying.
Ah,
When you sent me that, I was like, she owns the studio. She does this. She interviews people. They tell their story. You're really great.
thank you. This has
Thank you
been
for
so much
having me in your
fun.
space.
Anytime you are welcome, and we'll check in again.
Have a nice day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.